Ian,
Sure.
there are 26 letters in the Latin alphabet, and we can create such beautiful words and phrases and sounds from these 26 alone. Yet the Chinese language has many, many more. How many characters are they, and how do they come about?
So there are about, the latest tally is about 50,000 Chinese characters. Fortunately, we don't have to use most of them. So it's most Chinese dictionaries have about 20,000, and it takes about 2,000 to 3,000 characters for you to read the newspaper. So that's the bad news is the 50,000. The good news is only you need 2,000 to 3,000 characters.
In your book, in your wonderful book, you recount the story of Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. When he learnt Chinese, he said, "I love challenges." That's what drew him to this culture, this language in the first place. How difficult is it really to learn Chinese? Is it just me, or do other people find it difficult as well?
Just purely in terms of syntax or grammar or pronunciation, listening, it's kind of on par with the rest of the other languages, at least the ones that I've learned. But when it comes to reading, it starts becoming challenging because there are no alphabet, so you cannot just pronounce a word just by looking at the letters. And then in terms of writing, I mean, there are reasons why certain characters are written that way, but it's difficult for you to immediately find that logic. I'll give you an example. The word for beautiful, 美丽的丽. Li is basically deer with big eyes. So why is, obviously a deer with big eyes is beautiful, but why is that specifically then is used for the word beautiful, 美丽的丽?
Chinese characters may be difficult to learn, to read, and also to write, but there's something very beautiful about them. They almost resemble pictograms. If we look, for example, at sun, moon, a mountain, and water, they actually look like the objects that they represent. Are there many examples of these?
The simpler characters, yes. So let's say mountain, moon, the sun, all of these characters, because they're simple, they can resemble reality. But when it comes to something much more abstract, then, for example, river, 河, it's 3 dots of water again, means water, and then the word 可, which means can, but because of the sound, so it's a combination of water with the sound, then it brings the word river, 河.
Chairman Mao in the 1950s began to change all this. He saw a country that was hungry, that was poor, that was illiterate, and he literally simplified the language by taking out a number of strokes. Do you think, though, that that was a significant turning point in how the country then began to rebirth itself?
So, just by the numbers, around the turn of the 1900s, there were about 10% of Chinese, I guess, male adult population was literate. It was about 20% in 1949, and it shot up to about 64% by 1966. So the simplification of characters definitely made a huge difference. One of the key things to understand is that Chinese characters have always gone to the direction of simplification. So the first time the Chinese characters were unified was by Li Si, the prime minister for the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, the terracotta emperor. And his characters were really complicated. And then by the Li Shu, by Han Dynasty, it already became a bit more simplified. Then what we understand now to be Chinese characters is the traditional font is Kai Shu, which came late Eastern Han, and then Weijing Nanbei Chao, and then and really got standardized by the Tang Dynasty. So that's another simplification process. There's also the running script, which is basically this, a simplified quick version. And a lot of the simplified characters came from the running script. So it definitely makes a huge difference in terms of increasing the level of literacy. So if you think about it, the difference in dialects, in Chinese dialects, let's say a Cantonese person with like a Fujianese person is nearly, if not bigger than the difference between like a Portuguese person and a Spanish person. But Europe, apart from the geography, is very divided, while China is very unified. One of the key things is that we're unified by one written characters, and that unified the country. By now, with Putonghua, the great thing is that everybody you can communicate even with people that you can have the same dialect. So one of them is my aunt, who my mom's family is from like Chaozhou. So even though it's very close, it's still within the Guangdong province. It's very different from Cantonese, and there's absolutely no way that I could communicate with her. So there's one time I could really spend quite a bit of time with her when she visited, and we communicated with in Mandarin. And so that's when I learned a lot more about herself, about her family. I told her about my family, and so in some sense it's quite beautiful that using the Mandarin and we can find a common language to communicate.
Please give a warm welcome for James Chau.
I'm James Chau, host of the China Current, with a glimpse into tomorrow's world and stories about the human experience everywhere.